Hello and welcome to episode 98 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is June 24th, and together with Robert and Goran, we're here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So we're getting closer to episode 100 of our podcast. Today, actually, we had a slight change of plans, last-minute change of plans for our episode today. So what we'll do, we'll talk a little about low-code platforms. But before we go to the low-code platforms, let's start with some news from this week. And I actually want to start with something pretty cool, and that's the general available announcement, GA announcement of the SAP Private Link service. So you probably remember we had Martin Pankratz several times here. He has created some fantastic blog posts on how to actually use Private Link with your Azure subscription. So we see a lot of customers that obviously have the business technology platform and that have their SAP system running on Azure. And instead of now using the Cloud Connector or using public communication between BTP and Azure, the SAP Private Link service allows you to have a secure tunnel, basically. So you don't need to open up any public IP addresses or something like that. You don't need to connect to the internet to connect to BTP, but you can really have this secure direct connectivity. And this service, SAP Private Link, is now live. It is available in several BTP regions. So if you want to connect to your MariaDB, SQL Server, or a lot of other scenarios, and again, I should have opened Martin's blog post as well, but I'll share this one in the show notes. There's really a beautiful set of scenarios. Actually, here maybe there's one from Harut. I remember he had created one, and I think Harut also has here exactly linked. Not that Harut blog post is bad, but just an additional scenario of what you can actually do. And again, Martin here has a great summary of lots of different scenarios of how you can use the BTP Private Link service to connect it to Azure.
Right.
Then another cool thing, also GA, is GitHub Copilot.
Wow, I didn't know that. Oh.
Yes, it's pretty
Great.
cool actually. So it is GA. There is now a price tag to it, so it's $10 a month or $100 a year. But actually, it's also free for certain projects. So if you have some public repos on GitHub, I don't know, it's written somewhere there. Okay, so there's a 60-day trial, but then if you meet certain requirements, then you can still get it for free. So it's really, really cool. And I mean, I played a lot with this, obviously in the JavaScript and C# or .NET area, and I'm still extremely impressed. You might remember we had a session with Martin where we looked also in the ABAP world, and it worked to some extent. But I think if you're using Visual Studio Code, or actually it's also available with other
Visual Studio. It's also supported for Visual Studio, big brother for Visual Studio Code, full version
exactly.
of Visual Studio.
I think even some others as well. So it's really nice. It's a
actually I play with PowerShell. It's amazing. It's funny. You know, I don't like this helpers. Sometimes it's boring, but it's very intelligent. Especially, you know, when you have some if statement where you need to write some comments, you know, he's so intelligent that he actually suggests you the text, what you want to send in console, for example. It's so close to what you really need. It's amazing. It's very good. It's
really impressive. Also, not sure if you have tried it. If you write a comment, so if you're saying, so the following function should calculate
exactly,
something.
I know.
Then it suggests the code for you. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it also.
And here it says it will also be free to use for verified students and maintainers of popular open source projects. So I think
okay.
Yeah, that's also really nice. Okay, good. Then there's another report on defending Ukraine, early lessons from cyber war. And remember, a few months ago already, Microsoft had released some informations on cyber war, and this document, I mean, I haven't read through it, obviously. I didn't have time to do this yet, but Brad is talking here about 5 blocks, basically, here, 5 conclusions. That he clusters this report in, and I looked at some of the statistics or some of the charts there, which was really, really interesting, like how the cyber attacks have changed and increased in a lot of areas, and also what are the regions that are affected. There was a world map. Let me here, there one. So this is it's really interesting. I mean, again, I just looked at some of the insights there. I didn't read through everything, but I thought that was really interesting, and obviously is a general threat where you need to make sure that you protect your infrastructure, that you protect your SAP systems as well. And going back to the discussions that we had with Evren some time ago, to really build a zero trust environment with your SAP system. So I thought, it's really interesting to see what Microsoft is doing there, what data Microsoft is releasing. So I think that can definitely be an interesting report. Good. So with this, I think that was almost it that I wanted to cover from this week. Now, if you looked at your LinkedIn or Twitter feed, then maybe over the last few days, you might have seen a lot of noise around Neptune Software's IMPACT Festival. So I actually had the honor to participate the so-called IMPACT event from Neptune Software in Oslo, where Neptune Software talked about their low-code platform. So you might know, or maybe you don't, Neptune Software, I think I had, Neptune Software is a low-code app development platform. It's basically, they have different editions, but obviously the most interesting edition for me is the ABAP edition. So it's an add-on that you install on your SAP system, and then it basically enables the ABAP developer or other users to create applications that can easily interact with your SAP system. So there, for example, Robin van het Hof, he's one of the SAP mentors. He talks about the experience. He talked about the event, about the different customer stories that were there. And there were some really, really impressive customer stories. Or actually, they started with a hackathon where the participants, I mean, it was a low-code event, so they only had 8 hours, not the typical 24 or 48 hours to develop new applications. So they really used the low-code solutions to develop new applications. And within these 8 hours, it actually was pretty impressive what they accomplished. And the winning team, actually, they had an app, developed an app that was using Azure ML services to detect the health state of a tree in your environment. So you would just scan a leaf of the tree, and the Azure ML functionality would tell you, okay, this is probably a tree that is sick or healthy or something like that. They had some other cool customer stories, Dussmann Group, and a few others that really talked about what you can do with the Neptune software. Now, why am I mentioning this? I mean, obviously, with the Power Platform, we also have a low-code tool or low-code platform, I would say. And what is very intriguing for me is that I fully understand that in a lot of customer scenarios, you don't only have one low-code tool. You have multiple low-code tools that address different users, basically. So, I mean, when I look at the Power Platform, one of the key strengths is this fantastic integration in the whole Office suite, the integration in Teams, in Excel, in Outlook, and so on. So the huge amount of triggers and connectors that you have, and that is where I thought, well, can we actually bring multiple low-code tools together and really leverage the best of both worlds, basically? So that's where some time ago I actually had created a tutorial, more or less, that talked about how we can use Power Platform and the Neptune API Factory, so one of the components of Neptune, to connect to your SAP system. And you could ask, well, why are we doing this? Because obviously on the Power Platform, we have RPA, so we have Power Automate Desktop that allows you to connect to an SAP system. We have the ERP connector that connects to BAPIs and RFCs, and we even have an OData connector, well, in private preview, that allows you to connect to OData service on the SAP side. So why would you use something else? And for me, the big advantage here is that with Neptune, you have something that is actually installed on the SAP system, which means you have full access to all the business objects. Where, for example, with the ERP connector, we can connect to BAPIs and RFCs. With the Neptune API Factory, you have access to all the DDIC objects. You have all access to all the ALV reports, to everything that is there. So there might be scenarios where having just access to a BAPI is not good enough, where you really need to have a deeper integration in the SAP system. And
so this is like some add-on on backend system, yeah?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So obviously that is a prerequisite. Customers need to install the Neptune API Factory first, or the Neptune DXP platform first. But then once it is there, and actually let me jump here to the next screen, that's then where you can get access to the Neptune tools. And obviously there is the API designer, or the app designer that allows you to create new applications similar to what we're doing with the Power Platform. But then there's also the API Factory. And that's basically what I would like to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to the API Factory here, and again, this is running now on my SAP system, then I can get a list of customer or custom APIs, but there are also these system APIs available. So these system APIs are provided by Neptune, and they give me access to certain functionality. So for example, I could call a function module, or I could do an executed program or an open SQL statement. But what I found also really interesting, I can, for example, also access the information from search helps. So remember, if you go to an SAP transactions, then very often you can hit F4 and you get these value helps or search help informations. I don't know of an easy way to access this data via the SAP ERP connector that we have with the Power Platform, or via an OData service. Here, what I can do is I can just select this wrapper maybe and say, look, what I would like to do is I would like to, and that's obviously where you need to have some SAP know-how. I would like to use the search help here for DBIA, which allows me to search for customers. And then I can take a look at the OpenAPI or Swagger documentation of this specific API. So if you know OpenAPI, you know these functionalities. Now I could test these different methods directly in here. But what I can also do is I can take this URL and then I can switch over to the Power Platform. And in the Power Platform, what I can do is I can create a custom connector, because with the Power Platform and the custom connectors, we have the possibility to connect to, it's loading, to connect to these OpenAPI URLs. So what I'll do is I'll just say import OpenAPI from URL. I'll paste the information and I'll call this customer or look up customer, for example. I click on import, and now we are creating a custom connector that allows me to connect from the Power Platform to the API Factory. So I could do security, but I can go here also to the definitions and come on. Something is here we go. So here I have these different definitions or functions that are now exposed via the API Factory, and with this I can now interact with my SAP system. And that's something that I've already done. So I've already created the connector, and now I could just, as we've seen before, I could just start and create a new Power Automate flow. For example, I could let me actually quickly do this. Let me just here do a test and have this as a manual flow. And now one of the actions that we have. So if I go here to new step, then obviously here, if I search for SAP, I have here my SAP ERP connector. But what I also have now, if I go to custom, I have, yeah, well, this is the connector that I previously created. So I have my Neptune connector that allows me now to connect to the SAP system. So here's all the information exposed from SAP. So for example, what I could do is I could just say, if we compare this value here with a certain customer name. So let me search here for Techno Star, basically. I click on save and execute this flow now. Let me test this flow quickly here. Then we get all the customers that start with the name Techno back from the SAP system. So let me do this. Okay, signing in, continue. And now if we run the flow, then hopefully we'll get the information back from SAP. So within a few clicks, I can now connect to all the objects basically that are available in the SAP system. And here, for example, so we're searching for a Techno, and we get here, well, there's actually a customer called Techno. There's also a customer Techno Land, and so on. So this is really now coming live out of the SAP system. Now that I have this in Power Automate in this specific flow, obviously I can start using the Power Platform as a whole. So one thing that I very often hear is, well, what about the integration in Excel? And again, this is something where Neptune probably never intended to be, because they have a tool set to create new applications. But when it comes to the integration into Office products, that's not something that they typically do. So what we can now do is we can, so for example, here I have a list of customers, and as you obviously can see, there's some information missing. What I can do is I can, from within Excel, I can just start the Power Automate flow. So it's embedded in here. And actually, again, what I've already created, but we can take a look at this in a second. There's a flow that is available for this specific Excel sheet, which is called Fetch Customer Information. So I just click on Run. And now what we are doing is we are using the same custom connector to call the Neptune API Factory service. We're sending this customer name. And as a result, for example, we get the customer ID, we get the city, and the zip code back from the SAP. Or if I do this for this other customer name, then obviously the scenario is the same. And if you look behind the scenes, if you look at this Power Automate flow, so now you can see this data is also there, then you can see it's a really, really simple scenario. So we have a trigger event, one of the strengths of the Power Platform. So we have a trigger for a selected row. So I'll just select this information from here. Then in the end, we call the Neptune custom connector. And then as a final step, again, one of the strengths from our the Power Platform and Office integration, we just update the customer ID, the customer city, and the zip code directly in the Excel sheet. So really easy process, but now I'm able to reach Office users. They can easily connect now to an SAP system and interact from the Office product with SAP. So, and this obviously just the Excel integration. At the event, we talked about Teams integration. We talked about Outlook integration. You can obviously enrich this with AI capabilities. I talked about the GTP3 integrations that we have in the Power Platform to use AI basically to translate what a business user might want to do into actual code. So I thought, well, for me, it's just a beautiful way to connect, two low-code platforms together to help the end user to get SAP data into Office products.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was actually all that I. Yeah.
But when we this is somehow on API level, but when you're talking about low-code platforms, so do you see any direction that we are somehow going, or any other low-code framework is going direction to somehow use those UI components so that I can in Power Platform use some other components for other low-code, or it's not yet there?
I think that's a very interesting idea. I think what we did release is Power Pages. Let me see if I is already linked, because I have to admit I haven't used them yet. No, I don't know where they are. There's probably Power Pages. So and this could obviously be your container to
container for something else. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But this would be an easy way to integrate. I think what is definitely possible is that you can, for example, use, let's say you're using the app designer from Neptune, and you want to execute certain processes, that you could call a Power Automate flow. I think that could be one thing. But on a UI level, not sure. And when it comes to the UI integration, not sure if you've seen this, but that's actually also pretty cool. Where you can draw a picture, or maybe you do a whiteboarding session.
It's cool.
That's really nice. And then it's not only, because honestly, I mean, drawing something and taking a picture, yes, that probably happens a few times, so that you can do this image preview thing. But I think what is much more realistic is the Figma integration. So because I know a lot of companies, even if you look at if you want to mock up designs, then a lot of companies are using Figma to sketch and to build the prototype. Basically, there's even for SAP Fiori, for example, there are Figma stencils, I think they are called, that you can import, and then what we can do. Now we can take the Figma preview basically and generate a Canvas app directly in Power Apps directly out of this. So I thought that is a more realistic scenario than here taking a picture and doing it. But it's still a nice scenario.
Nice, interesting.
Yeah. So that was all that. I had today. As said, we had a slight change of plans for today's session. I hope that next week we the initial content will be delivered, and then we'll have a little more detailed episode again. But I hope that this short outlook or insight into what you can do with the Neptune platform and Power Platform was also interesting.
Yep, right.
Okay. Then thank you everyone for joining, and see you next week again.
See you.
Bye-bye.